the anti-terrorist operation zone. Proszę pan Andrija.
Good afternoon again, esteemed colleagues. Ukrainian army continues the operation on liberating Donetsk to block the groups of terrorists in the capital of Donbass. ATO's forces organized more than 30 points around the city. The units of the ATO forces continue to detain Russian mercenaries which are trying to break through to Lugansk in the regions of Novosverdlovka and Khrushchevata. Now this region is blocked by dozens of checkpoints and points of our military. We informed that because of the of heavy fighting near Khrushchevata, the work of the military engineers and experts, criminalists was stopped. We have the video from the people who were witnessing the tragedy of shooting at the convoy of peaceful citizens. We will reformat it and we will show it later. Now we know that in the hospital our mine engineers transported 6 wounded citizens, 3 of them in very grave state of health, and 3 others died. During the previous briefing, there was a question about the commander of the National Guard, Semen Sebechiko. We can confirm that in the battle for liberating Ilovaisk of Donetsk region, the commander of battalion who was with his soldiers received a wound and is now at the medical hospital. Nothing threatens his life now. The advisor to the Minister of the Interior, Zaryan Shkiryak, informed that starting from the 7th of August in Nartevi, Mivsk, Semen Khodakivsky, one of the leaders of terrorists, was detained. He participated in occupying the city council. During detention, he was wounded. Now he gives evidence, and he says that he had the position of one of the leaders of the band forms of so-called Donetsk People's Republic. Please do not mix up, differentiate between Alexander Khodakivsky and Semen Khodakivsky. This is Semen Khodakivsky. Alexander Khodakivsky will be the next one who will be detained. As to the situation in the settlements in the zone of conflicts, the terrorists continue to shell the settlements in the zone of ATO. Today in Lugansk, the mercenaries, combatants of the Chechen nationality, were shelling at the residential houses from Grad systems. And the result of that, in Chernukhina village of Perevalsky region, damaged the gas pipeline at the liberated territories of Donbass, and these are 27 regions and the cities of Donetsk and Lugansk, and 13 in Lugansk regions. The Minister of Social Policy started paying pensions. At the same time, the social payments are not received in the settlements Nizhne Gorlivka, Inakiva, Zhdanivka, Kirovsky, Makivska, Taras, Kartsysk, Shakhtarsk, in Shakhtarsk region, Yasanovata, and in Yasanovata region, and also in the cities of Donetsk and Lugansk. Before the day of independence, Ukrainian law enforcement officers started more actively fighting against terrorists. The security service of Ukraine detained a group of terrorists who were planning to shoot the aircraft of the forces of anti-terrorist operation forces, the aircraft of the forces. These are 6 Russian mercenaries who are in the age from 21 to 53 years, and the activities were coordinated from Russia, getting instructions from Russian special services. The terrorists were executing the plans of terrorist attacks to the strategically important objects of Kharkiv Oblast. They were trying to get to explode the train which was at the cross railway Zmiev-Zvanka. During the tension, 5 grenade launches were seized, 2 Shmel flame launchers, 2 Kalashnikovs, 2 Makarovs, 5 grenades, and 7, and also the cartridges. Also, they found the flash, the memory stick with the video evidence of their crimes. Now, the investigation is going on. According to Article 258, the act of terrorism, the workers of the Service of Combating with Economic Crime, the channel of financing terrorism was discovered, and this center had the annual turnover of approximately 9 billion hryvnias. Several commercial banks and companies worked for this center in Kiev and in 2 more regions. During the search, more than 20 million hryvnias were seized from these banks and firms. The citizens of Lysychansk of Lugansk region received another 3rd batch of humanitarian assistance from the citizens of Cherkasy region. These are 20 tons of the food products which are delivered to the city. So this is all the information. Please ask your questions. Is it known already how many people were there in this convoy of refugees? And now, do we understand it correctly that the number of those who died is 17, who were killed is 17? Yesterday, by the end of the day, there were 15 bodies discovered in the place of the tragedy, and 2 more bodies were transported to the hospital in Litugina settlement. So the total is now 17 people who were killed and 6 wounded. How many people were there? We do not know the final, the total number of people, because the convoy was organized chaotically. Some people in their cars were joining this convoy, and we know that about 4 or 5 cars managed to leave this area of shelling. They survived. They succeeded in leaving this place. Now we're looking for those people who were witnesses of the tragedy, and we request our colleagues journalists, if you have some video, any evidence, any photo, please give it to us. Washington Post also writes that Motor Sich continues to supply to Russia the spare parts to helicopters and military equipment. Because 27,000 people will stay unemployed if they stop supplies. And one of the main shareholders, Boguslav, told in the interview to Ukrainian mass media that it's funny to refuse from Russian market. Is that true that we continue supplies? When will this stop? In 2016, when the term of the contract about helicopters will expire? Thank you for the question. I'm not ready to answer it now. I will clarify this issue. I have 2 questions. Then social networks spread the information that the losses of Ukrainian military in the zone of ATO are much bigger than official information. Could you comment on that? And the second question is, today the advisor to the Deputy Minister of Defense, Petro Mecheda, said that according to his information, there are many more people, more than 100 people in captivity, and he quoted 1,007 people. Thank you for the question. All the figures which are provided and which do not coincide with the data that we give about the numbers of people killed, of our servicemen, they are wrong. If it's about the figure which is much bigger, that means that these are the stories for the terrorists who are left in small numbers. But our data are correct, and we suggest that you should use this data, and we want our journalists to understand it so that our journalists do not bury those people who continue to liberate our country. Talking about captives, we don't have exact information. I will again clarify it. It's about, I just want to mention that if you're talking about just military or just the total number of refugees, we don't have the total numbers because we cannot get it from the reasons that you should understand. What about the exchange of refugees? Of hostages, the exchange of hostages. The topic of the exchange and hostages, we are not discussing it publicly because those people who are working on liberating our hostages and who are working on exchange, they request not to disseminate that information. They request us to talk only about successes if they manage to succeed. When we start talking about people, especially mentioning their names, then the price for such people goes up. And it's very difficult for our negotiators to understand why these people are suggested for exchange but not others. And so they request not to discuss it. And another question, do you know any details about the shelling of this convoy with peaceful residents? How did people manage to survive? Thank you for your question. We don't have any details. Just the only details we have is that 2 military trucks were shelled, and the local citizens requested to give these trucks, and these trucks didn't have any military equipment. All these trucks had the white flag, all the vehicles had white flags, and all the convoy had white flags, and from a big distance it was visible that these are civilians, that that's not military convoy. As to other details, we can go back to them only after the active military actions stop in this region. Now it is impossible to conduct any investigation there. Talking about these 6 students who disappeared back on the 7th of August, and then one of them was, it was informed that one of them was found in captivity, in terrorists. So what is happening with these interns? You will get the more detailed information from the agency from which the interns are. And these interns are military who were enrolled via military commissariat. These are not the servicemen from a military institution. They had their military training at the training center for bodyguards. I believe that was a course of little longer than 1 month. It was a sort of a rapid program. And because there were very active fighting going on in the pre-border area, there was a necessity to enroll them into the detachments which were fighting at the border. What do you know about that? I believe that you can get this information from the agency where they're from. Any other questions? No, thank you. And tomorrow we hope to get information from you at 12:30. The press briefing of Valery Charlie will take place at 5:30.